God of War 3 is a game in which you are a man in which what? God of War 3 is a game in which a man offers you his bow in exchange for his freedom. So your first instinct is to burn him to death and steal his bow, then end the very concept of death by stabbing Hades, the lord of the underworld, in the tit, and then you beat up said severed tit before he can telekinesis it back onto his body. Like, I didn't read the Odyssey. God of War 3 is a big, dumb, outrageously violent display of inhumane savagery, where the entire point is to paint the game world red with the blood of nameless groups of code that dared to exist next to you. There is no point or greater purpose other than to cause as much pain as possible in brutally creative ways. The game speaks to the demonic part of our collective psyche, which secretly desires such power and has little more than societal norms in our way. And damn if it's not my favorite goddamn God of War game in the goddamn God of War franchise. I really need to write the rest of this out. This is really, I can't improvise things. So with all this in mind, what is it that draws me to God of War 3? Well, the short answer is everything. Except the writing.
The death of Olympus means the death of us all.
Then prepare for your death, Poseidon.
I don't know, I mean, you could probably write like 8 or more drafts or something, but it's not my game. Who might argue with the great and powerful Sony? All hail your fuckness. The story of God of War 3 is that Kratos is continuing his conquest for revenge against Zeus and the other gods of Olympus. Our tale begins where God of War 2 left off, with Kratos coming back from a time portal, riding his Titan homies up to Mount Olympus. He's still pissed that his dad stabbed him and burned down his house, so he goes to visit him for some much-needed family therapy. Mir steps into your journey. Poseidon decides to fucking explode into your life. This is happening right now. So after Kratos tears off the jaw of a fucking water horse and throws a whore off a mountain, causing unnatural flooding, killing millions because he had a family at one point, Kratos finally makes his way to the top of Mount Olympus a mere 20 minutes into the game. So Zeus is like, "Not today!" Nani? If there were only a way for Kratos to get himself out of this predicament. You may think this is just a cheap way to extend the story, but it's actually closer to $600 US. It's not funny. So Gaia drops like a sick diss track on you for like no reason. And like, this has always bothered me because I get that Gaia, you have your own shit to handle, but you know, with Kratos' track record with death and forgiveness, you think he may take exception to this? You fall into hell where a bunch of fish eat your progress from the last game. Did I fucking stutter? Hey, so, you remember how Athena was like the only murder Kratos committed since like his own family, where he expressed any kind of regret? Who with her dying breath begged you to end the cycle of patricide set across millions of years? Whose meaningful sacrifice showed how little Kratos had left to lose, making this entire crusade into a suicide mission? She is a ghost now, and she randomly really wants you to kill Zeus now, because
I see truth where I did not before.
I don't know what that means. So the ghost of an actual immortal god tells you about a new MacGuffin that can be used to kill gods, so your quest to find it is off. What do you think, freshly severed head of slain immortal god of the sun, Helios? This is a bad story. It relies completely on you pretending that you need to find the power to kill a god, all while causing the literal apocalypse by doing exactly that several times. Several times. I could forgive that. Whatever. Zeus is a big boy. I'm sure he won't fall like Ares. Blah, blah, blah. I guess. Whatever. The story is God's bad and Kratos also bad, but not really because it's also a redemption story. What? Yeah, so like skip ahead. There's like a subplot where you have to save Pandora from the labyrinth in order to sacrifice her to open Pandora's box again. It's Pandora's box. The MacGuffin is Pandora's box. I don't know if I explained that well enough. But at the last minute, Kratos finds his conscience and decides to save her. Good man. I'm sure all those other innocent children were dicks. Did you know Kratos had a family? Zeus is clearly the biggest asshole in the room because he's body slamming a 12-year-old, which is far worse than Omnicide. Have you read the Bible? I'm harping on this, but it's all kinds of unsettling when he uses a literal human being as a doorstep. Seriously, like that was the first place his mind went. Instead of asking her to hold it open for him, you can't just use one of the many zombie creatures that are overtly trying to murder you. Maybe at least give her the old college mercy kill first. That is actually a fucked up thing to do to someone. And then like less than a second later, he's talking all calmly to Pandora. He had a family! So the fuck did she? Fuck me, this is getting ridiculous. Let me just start over. The story of God of War 3... Ready for a hot take? Okay, you're not ready for this, but here we go. I think God of War 3 has perfect combat. In terms of bare structure, the game plays like your standard hack and slash. Square performs light attacks, triangle for slower, stronger attacks, circle to grab and subsequently throw a bitch. And as you progress through the campaign, you'll collect items to increase health, magic, and etc.
Who do I have to fuck to find some Gorgon eyes?
As well as red orbs from fallen enemies and chests, which you can trade for new combo moves, allowing you to experiment and find your ideal rampage agenda. Follow your dreams. How cool are the fucking Blades of Exile? They kicked ass in 2005 when they were the Blades of Chaos, and have since made sweet, passionate love to time. It's like Sony saw Scorpion's iconic chain and said, let's do that, but make it an entire game several times. What makes the blade such an original weapon concept is just how versatile it is. Having two retractable blades on your character as the main weapon allows you considerable range with normal attacks, letting you plan moves around hitting multiple enemies at once. That kind of justifies filling the room with whatever and however many sons of bitches Santa Monica sees fit. It aids to the power fantasy because it doesn't feel like you can drench the room in the blood of your enemies with minimal effort. It's a game mechanic. Plus, like, each God of War gets increasingly creative with the aforementioned combos, so it isn't really a matter of having a unique weapon in order to say we're being different. You're also not graded, so you can creatively rampage without worrying about hitting that quadruple S sexy style move. Fuck. I call this one the torrential bitch slap because I've never actually been funny. The blades are a really cool and different weapon with plenty of room for variety, and I guess Santa Monica, all of it, appears to agree with me, because nearly every butt-fucking weapon is a variation on this concept. While this isn't a huge detriment, this game perfected the series' combat formula, and I stand by that. But it was a solid disappointment seeing such a lack of creativity when it came to new weapons. This one is a chain blade that summons the dead. This one is a chain blade that does not summon the dead. This is something completely different. Why is there even a magic meter? The punchline to this cruel, generational leaping, repetitive combat slog of a joke is that after you get the Nemesis Whip, someone, a presumed native English speaker, had the audacity to write this line.
A fine weapon like no other.
Liar!
In the interest of fairness, these weapons aren't entirely a write-off. They all possess different combos at least, so you could see this as a different take on a working formula. I may have dunked on the Nemesis Whip, but at the same time... The Nemean Cestus is also a pretty unique weapon in its own right, having the force of a slower weapon while working with the smooth pace of a typically weaker one. Basically, it's broken. On the other hand, why does this game have puzzles? Like, why bother? Are they so terrified that their flawlessly smooth and satisfying combat will get boring so they have to throw some basic problem solving at me just to claim that they have variety? I wouldn't care so much if this game didn't have the labyrinth. Admittedly, I don't know a lot about Greek mythology, but wasn't the labyrinth supposed to be an elaborate mindfuck that drove those who entered to the brink of insanity? Sounds like a perfect opportunity to flex this game's smart muscle. So, like, why did I finish it in 45 minutes? Why is there minimal puzzle solving and like 3 waves of enemies? I'm not saying turn it into Portal. I just don't like when games have wasted potential. The puzzles only make up roughly like 15% of the game, and since bosses take up like 200% of the screen, I think it's time we moved on. If the opening boss battle with Percy's dad showed us anything, it's that God of War is completely fine with trading the quality of its writing for pure spectacle, and God bless it. In fact, every boss, almost, feels like it could be the final boss, but not really at all. Okay, they weren't exactly all gems, but when the first boss literally explodes out of nowhere and shifts the very terrain you're fighting on, changing the control style periodically mid-level, it's hard to be too underwhelmed when I only get to brutally tear off Helios's head one bloody seam at a time. The first set piece in the game provides a nice balance of normal opening level and, as you trek up Mount Olympus, periodically interrupted by that. He's present through the entire opening and you have a bunch of mini-boss fights with like his claw or his cock or something until he finally reveals his full form.
You challenge me, mortal? A god of Olympus?
Well, don't that establish a tone? Nice cock! That, of course, is not to say every boss feels the need to be overly cinematic. There are smaller scale encounters as well that use each god's gimmick in a smart way. Even those are satisfying, though. They make good use of combat mechanics and offer a nice balance of pattern recognition as well as brute force that make up for the lack of personal stakes in the story. One of my personal favorite boss fights is Hades. It's a more intimate encounter than the last, taking place entirely in one circular area, which is a notable contrast from the Water Horseman, cock. Hades uses his own variation of the Blades of Exile, leaving you little room to get comfortable. His varied attack pattern leaves you on the defense more than other boss fights, showing that the game, while over the top, won't rely solely on spectacle, but puts thought into how boss encounters are designed. Not every boss fight is a fucking masterpiece, though. While it is brutally gratifying tearing off the head of Helios and using it as a flashlight for the entire game as just the most chef's kiss humiliation, the literal god of the sun maybe deserved better than a QuickTime event. And I guess there's no putting this part off anymore. QuickTime events. I don't like them. They're dumb. They've always been dumb, and they will continue to be dumb long after their current non-existence. Whereas most games in the 2010s were wising up and realizing that it was a stupid gimmick to murder players that don't have the reflexes of God, the actual God, something my neurodivergent ass is very grateful for, God of War stayed true to its roots and wore that bitch-like armor. I can understand doing this for a couple of stronger enemies, maybe kinda, if you have to. While there's a good amount of visual variety in the way Kratos offs each god, it is difficult to get hyped seeing the early game boss showcase when I know that every single one of them will end in a game of M-rated bop it. This doesn't ruin fights, mind, but it's just crazy to me that in 2010, the supposed massive finale to the epic God of War supposed trilogy kept the biggest flaw of the preceding games. Seriously, killing you just for failing one of these, it's more tedious than anything because you usually just spawn right back where you fucking started. While I'm nitpicking, this game also has RE4's issue of having a way less interesting and a pretty drawn out final act. Going from offing the god of the sea and the lord of the underworld to a coliseum where you turn an actual demigod's head into jelly, having it capped off with a very big scorpion. Okay, Mike, just like throw 5 or 6 trolls there and we'll call it a level. Greatest hits time, because we clearly can't let you go to the final boss till you kill everything again. Gotta fall forever. Because it's really important that you fall forever. I cannot believe I haven't killed God yet. In fairness, while RE4's final boss was an anticlimax, the fight with Zeus is, and you gotta listen to me for this one, it's actually Dragon Ball Z.
You do well! You do well! You do well! You do well! You do well!
I'm somewhat in two minds about God of War 3. On the one hand, as an entry in the God of War series, I kinda sorta resent it for flanderizing Kratos and overindulging in the violent side of his personality, which, to be fair, was most of it, practically undoing his redemption. But on the other hand, it goes so far in the direction of batshit insane, self-indulgent, fuck-off violence that I sort of love or at least admire it as a piece of art for that. I know I said it was my favorite in the beginning, but you need to understand, my favorite God of War game changes like every 8.5 minutes. I can at least say that 3 is practically being a parody of itself and being damn well proud of it. And in the end, you just have to respect a piece of art that will just be so aggressively itself and not care about what anyone could possibly think of it. That's just fun. This is just a fun game. I'm going off script. This game's just fun. I mean, you get to fuck Aphrodite. That Aphrodite. No one gave a fuck, and God bless them for it. This video is over now. That's it. I am done. I did not write an ending to this video. Get off my dick. Get fucked. Santa Monica. It's not funny. It's not funny. Turn the video off. Stop enabling me. It's not funny. Subscribe or I swear to God I'll start an OnlyFans.